Let's start with this boomerang-shaped galaxy. There's been a bit of a mystery about this that's been solved by black hole. I want to start as well. We've got pictures of this. When we say boomerang-shaped, in the true tradition of space objects, it kind of looks like a boomerang, and they're never exact lookalikes, are they?
Look, yeah, the universe doesn't always cooperate with our ideas of what it may think it looks like, but it's close. It's oddly shaped. And it's been a mystery because this big galaxy has been seen for ages, and we know that there's a black hole at the center of it. And we know that when black stars get near black holes, as you're seeing now, they rip stuff apart. The question is, how do you get that weird shape? So sometimes stuff falls into the black hole and squirts out in these big jets like you're seeing. But how did you actually get this weird shape? That's always been one of the questions, but it appears to have been solved by a new radio telescope in South Africa.
And what did it see exactly? How did it? What was it witnessing when you say the situation or the mystery solved?
So what we was able to see was actually kind of to break it down into different parts of the galaxy and kind of trace the flow of the gas to actually see the speed and the direction of the gas. And what it appears that it's coming down, bouncing off the black hole and coming out. So it's actually that the black hole spitting stuff out into space, but then the gravity of the black hole is pulling it back down. It kind of bounces off and shoots in a different direction. So, it's as if you threw a ball at the wall and it came back and hit you in the face. Well, that's actually what's happening to the black hole. It's getting hit in the face by the gas and stars that just chewed up and spit out.
So we'll bring that vision up again, that simulation, but is the way that they can see these new types of reactions that you get a telescope that focuses only on certain types of material or matter, and they almost sort of, blend the other stuff out? How does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You look at very specific frequencies or colors of light. In this case, a very specific frequency of radio light. So, similar things to what we hear with our ears, but if our ears were really sensitive and able to detect this type of light, we'd be able to actually see it moving. So it's kind of like if you're just looking at wind patterns, right? Sometimes people look at water flows. So you put dye in the water and see how it moves through the river or the lake. So kind of by looking at a certain type of gas, you're able to use that almost as a dye and see where it moves through space. And you can measure how fast it is and the direction it's moving. So like tracking currents, they were able to do this with this black hole.
Speaking of black holes, we've now got the closest recorded one to us. Close enough to see, apparently, by the naked eye, but that's still a very long way away.
Look, still really far away. I know how 2020 is going. It feels like a black hole popping in our solar system's on par, but it's not. It's still 1,000 light years.
We're okay.
And the way, a good safe distance. And the way that it was seen was exactly how you're seeing on the screen, is that it's part of 3 stars. So there's the black hole and 2 other stars. And a very sensitive telescope in Chile was able just to measure the movement of the other 2 stars. It's year, essentially. And they were able to see it moving or orbiting around another object, just as the Earth goes around the sun. And by observing a couple years or a couple orbits of it, we're able to determine that it was definitely moving around something, and that something happens to be a black hole 4 times the mass of our sun.
There you go, and someone sat there watching that for 2 years, but now we can talk about it. Just finally, China's launched its new rocket this week, so it's going to carry humans and its space station into orbit, but it didn't all go to plan. What happened?
No, so, China has a big ambition of growing their space program. They're kind of where U.S. and Russia were 20 to 30 years ago, not necessarily backwards, but putting a lot of money into homegrown technology. So they launched the Long 5B rocket, able to carry 20 tons. Now, it went up fine, but the kind of what we call the detaching or the dissembling in space where the capsule detaches, it didn't go as smoothly as they'd like. The rocket booster itself, so kind of the bottom part that you're seeing lift off here, didn't also detach perfectly. And it eventually came back down. It came back down a couple days ago, actually mostly over inland U.S. Now, that's not usually the plan. Usually it's a controlled reentry over the ocean because you don't want it to crash on a major city. It actually crossed over Hollywood.
That's what I'm saying. What's the U.S. response to this, Brad? I mean, does that mean that theoretically it could have landed anywhere and on homes or...?
Yes, it actually crossed directly over Hollywood, Colorado Springs, and actually New York City Central Park. And if it came down too early, it would have crashed. That's not the sort of thing that you'd like to happen. So usually when these rocket boosters come down, they're aimed to be landed in the ocean. And so this kind of was hey, good job, China, but, obviously a little bit of work is needed in some of the finer details. And, every country's been through this, but, it's a sign of the growing race in space in a lot of different ways.
Imagine that inflaming US-China tension out of all things. Brad Tucker, good to chat. Talk soon.
Take care.